The coaching carousel is spinning out of control, and we have absolute chaos in the AFC that could change everything for the Pittsburgh Steelers. A massive head coach firing just shook the league. An insider is dropping bombshells about a Rams coordinator taking over the Steel City, and a dark horse candidate just earned a shocking second interview that nobody saw coming. You need to sit down for this one because the future of this franchise is being decided right now. But before we dive into the madness of this coaching search, do me a huge favor. Smash that like button, share this with a fellow fan, and make sure you are subscribed so you never miss a single update. We have to start with the news that has completely altered the landscape of the NFL today. The Miami Dolphins have officially made their move, and it directly impacts us. They are hiring Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator and former Steelers candidate, Jeff Hafley, to be their next head coach. He's linking up with their new GM down in South Beach, and while that takes a solid name off our board, the ripple effects here are what truly matter. If you were holding out hope for Malik Willis to come to Pittsburgh to compete for the quarterback job, you might want to kiss that dream goodbye. With Hafley and a Green Bay-centric staff building a home in Miami, the odds of Willis ending up a Dolphin just skyrocketed. It makes too much sense. So, Hafley is out, Willis is likely out, and the board is shrinking. But as one door closes, a massive, controversial door just blew wide open. In a stunning move, the Buffalo Bills have fired Sean McDermott following their divisional round loss to the Denver Broncos. Despite another MVP-caliber season from Josh Allen, despite winning the division, they fall short of the Super Bowl again, and the Bills brass has seen enough. McDermott is now a free agent. He is on the street. And the immediate, burning question setting social media on fire is this: should the Pittsburgh Steelers pick up the phone? Think about it. This is a guy who just left Buffalo with the second highest winning percentage among active coaches. He wins 66% of his games. That is a staggering number in this league. He turned a franchise that was a laughingstock for decades into a perennial playoff contender. He built a culture. He has the resume of a guy who knows how to stabilize a ship and rack up regular season wins. If you look strictly at the floor he provides, he is arguably the safest, most qualified head coach on the open market right now. He could walk into Pittsburgh, take our draft capital, take our defensive foundation, and keep us competitive for the next 5 years without breaking a sweat. However, we have to look at the ugly side of this coin. Sean McDermott had Josh Allen, arguably the most physically gifted quarterback on the planet, for half a decade, and he never even sniffed a Super Bowl appearance. He couldn't get past Patrick Mahomes. He couldn't get past Joe Burrow. And now, he's losing at home in the playoffs to Bo Nix and the Broncos. If he couldn't get it done with a generational alien at quarterback in Buffalo, why on earth would we believe he can get it done here? Are we trying to hire a guy who guarantees us 10 wins and a first-round exit? Or are we trying to find the guy who brings number 7 home? It feels like hiring McDermott would be hiring a good enough coach, not a great one. It feels like settling for stability rather than chasing a championship ceiling. I know he's a stable leader, and I know he runs a tight ship, but is that enough anymore? We aren't looking for someone to just keep the seat warm. We are looking for a killer. And I'm just not convinced McDermott is that guy when the lights are brightest. But let's pivot to the name that is suddenly gaining massive traction. NFL insider Albert Breer dropped a report that has everyone talking. He didn't mince words. He said the Steelers really like Rams defensive coordinator Chris Schula. And when an insider like Breer uses phrasing like really like and emphasizes that it's not just smoke, you have to pay attention. Schula is currently the betting favorite, and there is a very real chance he is the next head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, why Schula? Why is a guy who looks like he's fresh out of college commanding this much respect? It's simple. Look at what he did in Los Angeles. He took a Rams defense that was gutted, filled with 4th and 5th round picks, young guys, cast-offs, and he turned them into a top 10 unit. We are talking top 10 in points per game, top 10 in EPA per play, and top 10 in success rate. He did that with the cheapest defense in the NFL. That is pure coaching. That is development. That is taking a raw piece of clay and molding it into a weapon. Schula has the pedigree, too. He's been a linebacker, he's coached defensive backs, he's coached linebackers, he's coached the defensive line. He understands every single level of the defense because he has been in the trenches with every single position group. He's not just a guy drawing up plays in a tower. He's a teacher. And let's not ignore the Sean McVay factor. He has been right beside McVay for years, watching how a modern, championship-winning organization operates. He knows how to build a culture that players love, and he has connections to bring in a young, innovative offensive staff. The rumor is he could bring Nate Schula with him as offensive coordinator, which would be a massive injection of youth and creativity into our playbook. But I have to ask you a serious question here, and I want you to really think about this before you answer. Does Chris Schula have the bite to handle the Pittsburgh Steelers locker room? We are used to Mike Tomlin. We are used to Bill Cowher. We are used to Chuck Noll. When those men walked into a room, the air changed. You sat up straighter. You respected them instantly. Does Chris Schula have that gravity? Does he have that alpha presence that commands respect from grown men making millions of dollars? I'm not saying he's soft. He played linebacker. He's a football guy. But there is a difference between being a smart coordinator and being the face of a franchise. Can he stand at the podium after a brutal loss to the Ravens and command the city? That is the unknown variable. And that brings me to our question of the day. I need you to sound off in the comments section right now because this is splitting the fan base down the middle. If the choice comes down to the experience of Sean McDermott or the potential of Chris Schula, who are you taking? Are you taking the safe, proven winner who failed to win the big one, or the young, risky genius who could be the next great thing? Type McDermott or Schula down below and tell me why. While you guys are debating that, we have to talk about the curveball that just hit us. While everyone was focusing on Schula and McDermott, the Steelers quietly brought back former Dolphins defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver for a second in-person interview. This is huge. You don't bring a guy back for a second interview just to satisfy a rule or be polite. If he's in the building twice, he is a finalist. He is a legitimate threat to win this job. Anthony Weaver is a fascinating candidate because he is the polar opposite of the young genius archetype. He is pure grit. He is a former player who spent time in this division with the Ravens. He understands the blood feud between Pittsburgh and Baltimore because he lived it. When you listen to Weaver talk, you don't question his leadership. He talks about violence. He talks about putting your helmet under a chin strap. He speaks the language of the AFC North. People are sleeping on him because the Miami defense had some issues last year. But let's be fair. He didn't have the personnel. His cornerback room was decimated by injuries. He didn't have the interior defensive linemen to anchor the run game. But look at the scheme. He runs that Mike Macdonald-style defense, the same system that terrified the league in Baltimore and Seattle. It's a big nickel-heavy scheme, and guess what? That fits our roster perfectly. We have the personnel to run that 3-safety look. We have the edge rushers to make chaos happen. Weaver could come in here and install a system that maximizes our talent immediately. Plus, look at his connections. If he gets the job, he could tap into that Miami offensive tree. We're talking about guys like Frank Smith or Darrell Bevell, proven offensive minds who have developed quarterbacks like Trevor Lawrence and Russell Wilson. Weaver brings the defensive toughness, and he hires an offensive coordinator to handle the scoring. It is a formula that works. And let's be honest about the presence factor I mentioned with Schula. With Anthony Weaver, that is not a question. The man commands a room. He has that Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, play like a Raven intensity, and as much as I hate that slogan, I would love to steal that intensity and bring it to Pittsburgh. Art Rooney, too, has said repeatedly that leadership is the #1 trait he is looking for. If Weaver walked into that interview and blew them away with his command and his vision, he could easily steal this job from the favorites. There is also a fascinating subplot here. Weaver is also getting a second interview with the Baltimore Ravens. Imagine that tug of war. He probably has the inside track in Baltimore because of his history there, but if the Steelers snatch him away, that is a power move. That is weakening your rival and strengthening yourself in one stroke. Ultimately, I think the Steelers are leaning towards Schula or Brian Flores, who we know is interviewing tomorrow. But do not count Weaver out. He is the dark horse who checks every single box for what a Steelers head coach has historically looked like. Tough, defensive-minded, and a natural leader of men. We are in the thick of it now, folks. The interviews are happening, the candidates are in the building, and a decision is coming sooner than we think. Whether it's the offensive upside of Schula, the veteran stability of McDermott, or the raw leadership of Weaver, the next era of Steelers football is about to begin. I want to know where your head is at. Are you Team Schula, Team Weaver, or are you praying they hire Brian Flores after his interview tomorrow? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one of them. We will be back the second any news breaks, whether it's a hire, another firing, or a surprise candidate entering the ring. Keep it locked right here.